Welcome to Infinite Universe with interesting episode. Police in Los Angeles said that witnesses were too scared to speak about the death of rapper Notorious B.I.G. At a press conference, detectives shared that they were also exploring whether Biggie's death was connected to other rap artist murders, especially the murder of Tupac Shakur. For years, fans thought they knew everything about Biggie Smalls until rumors about a locked garage in Brooklyn started to grow. People said that the garage belonged to Biggie and might contain secret music, old notebooks, and even a hidden car. Some believed these were just made-up stories, but others claimed they had seen the crates with their own eyes. If even part of the story was true, it could mean Biggie left behind songs and plans that nobody was ever supposed to hear. It might also show a new side of him that the world never got to know. In July 1998, about 14 months after Biggie's funeral, his estate's lawyer Alfred Pagan reportedly received quiet court permission to look into a small property tied to Biggie, a separate garage on St. James Place. While his main home had already been dealt with, this garage, located between two brownstone buildings, remained locked. Lawsuits over Biggie's wrongful death were still ongoing. Pagan, along with Biggie's mother Valetta Wallace, two locksmiths, and someone from Bad Boy Records, arrived to open the garage. Security guards were also there. No one knew what they might find. Biggie had spoken in interviews about hidden stash spots, and fans had long speculated about jewelry or unreleased lyrics that could reignite the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. One version of the story says that when the last padlock was opened and the garage door rolled up, Valetta walked in first, holding her son's rosary. She took a moment alone before asking the team to begin. Pagan picked up a notebook from the top of a crate. Written in large, swirling letters was, Studio List Album 3. Everyone went silent. This wasn't just fan memorabilia. This was Biggie's unfinished work. A plan was quickly formed to photograph and move the items to a safe storage facility. Anything with lyrics or music would be copied and sealed. The car would stay behind until a mechanic checked it. A total of 31 crates were found. 20 were labeled sessions, 3 said video ideas, 4 were labeled taxes, and the last 4 had no labels. The car, covered in a thick top, was in the back. The unlabeled crates created the most excitement. Each was taped shut tightly and had the same kind of padlock that was used at Biggie's studio in Clinton Hill. When workers opened the first crate, they found professional studio master tapes wrapped in plastic with moisture-absorbing packets. The engineer stamps dated the recordings to early 1997, just weeks before Biggie left for Los Angeles. Some of the track titles were My Downfall Altvox, Player Hater Choir Take, and one just called Secret Beat with Stevie J. Valetta asked if the tapes could still be played. The engineer explained that old tapes like these needed to be reheated in a dehydrator before being played once to make a digital copy. Any mistake could ruin the recordings forever. While this was happening, a mechanic lifted the top from the car. Chrome letters on the back read Lexus GS 300, the same car Biggie mentioned in his song Hypnotize. It wasn't rented. The title was in Biggie's name, dated December 1996. That raised more questions, but the tapes had stories of their own to tell. Biggie's estate reportedly hired Cutting Room Studios in Manhattan to transfer the tapes. Tony Dorsey, the same engineer who worked on Ready to Die, supervised the work. On August 12, 1998, 5 crates were delivered under tight security. Technicians logged each reel, checking the handwriting against studio records. Out of 97 tapes, 43 were alternate versions of songs from life after death. 13 had unused beats, and 9 had unknown song titles. One of the new songs, called Brooklyn Undefeated, started with a smooth loop and horn sounds from a 1970s movie soundtrack. Biggie's voice came in rough and casual, like a first draft. His flow was different from what fans knew, faster and more complex. Engineers in the studio were amazed. Another song, Hold Your Head Part 2, used a gospel choir and an old-school drum beat. At one point, Biggie joked with the producer, saying, "Bring that snare up, Stevie, I'm drowning here." Many verses mentioned being a father, likely inspired by the birth of his son in 1996. Legal problems were now a concern. Any official release would need permission from writers, producers, and guest artists. Bad Boy's legal team made lists of sample sources, including Isaac Hayes and the SOS Band. Some samples might be impossible to clear. Valetta Wallace made it clear that nothing should be released unless it honored her son. If it celebrates Chris and helps people, we'll think about it, she told reporters. Soon, word about the tapes got out. A news outlet published a story titled "Vaults Could Rewrite Biggie's Legacy." Online forums filled with wild theories. Some people thought there were secret diss tracks or that Biggie had been an undercover informant. To stop the rumors, Bad Boy released a short 30-second beat from Brooklyn Undefeated. It had no lyrics. Still, fans loved it and remixed the beat almost immediately. Then another surprise appeared. From the last crate came a small notebook. Inside, Biggie had written a kind of personal mission statement in early 1997. It read, "I wanted to leave something behind. Music nobody could flip. Money for my kids. Hope for the block." That one line, "Hope for the block," touched everyone in the room. It showed that these weren't just leftover songs. They were part of Biggie's final message. He wanted to protect his kids and give something back to Brooklyn. But the music was just one part of the discovery. There was still the Lexus, and what was found inside added even more to Biggie's story. The car, a 1997 Lexus GS 300, was taken to Liberty Auto, a trusted repair shop. Mechanic Carlos Mendez did a full inspection. The car had just over 14,000 miles. Service stickers showed regular maintenance, with the last visit recorded in February 1997. The car was clean, but showed signs of real use. There was a reggae mixtape in the cassette player and the faint smell of a common car air freshener. Mendez's assistant, Jada, checked under the back seat for moisture. She found a flat USPS box sealed with tape. Pagan gave permission to open it. Inside were 3 spiral notebooks, a pile of photocopied forms, and an envelope full of receipts. The notebooks were dated from December 1996 to March 1997. One section was titled Brooklyn Music Scholarships. Biggie had outlined a plan to give $5,000 scholarships to high school seniors interested in audio engineering. Students would need a GPA above 2.5, a demo tape, and an essay about helping their community. There was also a page about starting a basketball league for kids, with FUBU providing uniforms. He had written notes like "Call Shaw Carter" and drawn little microphones and dollar signs. The receipts matched the plan. There were records of donations to a local high school, music equipment purchases, and a check for $18,000 made out to a health center. None of this had ever been mentioned in public. Biggie was known for his flashy lifestyle, but these documents showed he was quietly planning to give back. Jada also found a plastic key tag inside the third notebook. It was labeled Christopher Wallace Memorial Fund. It included contact info for a lawyer and a space for a date that was never filled in. It looked like Biggie was creating a charity just weeks before his trip to California. The Lexus had one more secret. In the glove box was a cassette with no label. When engineers played it later that night, they heard Biggie freestyle over the beat from Juicy Fruit by Mchum. Between verses, he said, "If the schools ain't got no boards, we'll buy boards. Ain't about tax write-offs. This is love." That moment made it clear. Biggie wasn't just dreaming about giving back. He was already doing it. As the Garage Mystery became a story of charity, business interests started circling. The estate began asking a bigger question: what should they do with all this? The tapes, the notebooks, the car, each item carried meaning. The estate didn't want to rush into anything. Valetta Wallace wanted any future releases to respect her son's wishes. That same year, she officially launched the Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation. The foundation helped young people in Brooklyn through education, mentoring, and community events. The mission lined up perfectly with what Biggie had written in his notebooks. The estate moved slowly. Engineers restored and stored the tapes carefully. Talk of a release focused more on doing it the right way than making money. Eventually, they shared just one unreleased instrumental as a quiet tribute to fans. Proceeds went to support the foundation. Meanwhile, the foundation grew. It hosted school supply drives, youth art programs, and community workshops. Though the full story of the garage wasn't public, it inspired the people running the foundation. Biggie's legacy was becoming more about helping others than just his music. Over time, ideas came up about how to involve scholarship winners more directly. One plan was to let students record a song in a real studio before they graduated, honoring Biggie's roots. Some even thought the Lexus could be used in public programs, not as a museum piece but as a symbol of change. Still, the estate was careful. They knew one wrong move, a leak, a misunderstood release, could ruin what they had built. That fear became real in the summer of 1999. An unreleased Biggie track leaked online. It wasn't polished, and no one had talked about it before. But fans knew the voice. The file spread fast on early internet sharing sites. Some thought it came from a studio worker, others believed it was fake. But those who had heard the original tapes said it was real. An internal check found the source. A young engineer had copied the file to show a friend. He didn't mean any harm, but the damage was done. The estate removed him from the project and tightened security. Surprisingly, the leak had one positive result. It brought two rival groups together. Because of the long-standing East Coast-West Coast tension, some believed the leak was a lost Biggie and Tupac collaboration. It wasn't true, but the rumor spread fast. Both estates released joint statements denying it. It was a rare moment of unity in a divided world. This story, from the garage discovery to the leaked track, shows a different side of Notorious B.I.G. Behind the fame and music was a man who wanted to give back, help his community, and leave something meaningful behind. What started as a mystery ended as a mission. And that mission, carefully protected by those who loved him, continues to grow, one beat and one young dreamer at a time. Christopher Wallace, better known as Biggie Smalls or the Notorious B.I.G., left behind more than just music. After his tragic death in 1997, his legacy became something sacred to his estate and those close to him. Although many stories floated around about his mysterious garage, what really mattered was how his memory and music were handled in the years that followed. The people in charge of his legacy didn't rush to profit from the unreleased material. Instead, they chose patience, protection, and purpose. They believed that any music released should do more than entertain, it should educate, uplift, or preserve something meaningful. After a leak of unreleased material caused a stir, the estate became even more cautious. The main concern wasn't just storing old tapes, it was about protecting them in a way that would still allow future generations to learn from them. To make that possible, all the studio reels, notebooks, and other materials were quietly moved to a secure, secret location. It's believed they might have used a professional company like Iron Mountain, known for storing important music archives in temperature-controlled and secure bunkers. Once stored safely, every single tape was reviewed and digitized with extreme care. Engineers worked in pairs and used high-resolution formats like WAV and FLAC to ensure no detail was lost. Each file was logged and encrypted, while the original physical tapes were preserved in cool, dry conditions with minimal handling. This was more than preservation, it was about honoring a man's life and making sure it wouldn't be lost to time or technology failure. But they didn't stop at saving the music. Around the early 2000s, the estate began quietly reaching out to universities and research institutions. One of them was Cornell University, home to a large hip-hop archive. Although there was no official public partnership, it's believed that discussions happened about how to allow controlled academic access to Biggie's work. The idea was not to mass-release everything but to let scholars, documentary makers, and hip-hop historians use some of it in a careful and respectful way. Sometimes small loops, instrumental fragments, or short vocal samples were allowed to be used, always under strict agreements that protected the content. Among the gems that surfaced was an old acetate record labeled Bedstuy Mixtape 1991. It featured a teenage Biggie rapping at a local party over Marley Marl beats. The record itself was fragile and falling apart, so engineers used advanced scanning technology, normally used by museums, to recover the audio without damaging the disc. The quality wasn't perfect, but it captured something priceless, a raw, passionate teenager dreaming big in Brooklyn. Meanwhile, back in Brooklyn, the foundation set up in Biggie's name quietly continued to help the community. By the early 2000s, they had helped dozens of students get access to education and internships in music studios. One young woman even landed a job as an assistant engineer on a big label album. She later said it all started with a single visit to a studio Biggie once used. His presence inspired her to chase her dreams, and she credited the Biggie Fund for opening that door. Not everything went smoothly, though. There was at least one legal argument when someone claimed they co-wrote a track found on one of the demo tapes. A cassette labeled Junior MAFIA demo was submitted as evidence in the dispute, but analysis couldn't prove much. The matter was settled privately, and the track remains unreleased to this day. To avoid such problems in the future, the estate started adding digital watermarks to every single audio file. These marks are silent but can be used in court to prove the music's authenticity if anyone ever tries to make a false claim. It's easy to imagine that such a rich archive might be mishandled or used to make quick money. But that wasn't the case here. There was no rush to release every hidden track. There were no dramatic announcements. Instead, there was discipline, care, and a belief that Biggie's legacy deserved to be treated with respect. The focus was not on making noise, but on making sure the right people heard the music at the right time. As technology evolved, the estate embraced new ways to share Biggie's music without opening the door to piracy. In 2005, they worked with Microsoft Research to create an online interactive project called Flow. This digital experience let users scroll through a timeline and hear short, carefully selected clips of Biggie's work. Moving through the years, listeners could hear how his sound evolved from rough early takes to polished studio recordings. Each clip was short to avoid copyright issues, but they gave users a chance to understand how the music was made. Flow launched on the 10th anniversary of Biggie's classic album Life After Death. The celebration included a special one-night event at the Brooklyn Museum. The iconic Lexus Biggie once drove was displayed, and scholarship recipients helped explain music production to visiting students. Even teenagers who didn't grow up with vinyl records left with a new appreciation for sound engineering, EQ balancing, and track layering. Hip-hop had entered the classroom in a big way. This shift didn't go unnoticed by the music industry. Instead of pushing the estate to release full albums or exclusive box sets, record labels started offering deals to use small parts of the archive in educational documentaries or music courses. The money earned was used to fund a new community studio in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Biggie's old neighborhood. Every July, the same Lexus from the museum appeared again at ribbon-cutting events, now with more miles on the odometer but even greater symbolic value. But as the music went digital, new problems arose. In 2007, a video went viral on YouTube claiming to feature Biggie insulting newer rappers. It looked real and sounded convincing. But when experts analyzed the clip, they found pitch problems and unnatural timing, signs that artificial intelligence had faked the voice. The estate used Flow's authenticated sound files to prove the video was fake. That moment reminded everyone why the archive mattered. In an age of deepfakes and manipulated media, having a trusted source for Biggie's real voice and words became more important than ever. That same year, the estate published the Wallace Papers, a 300-page book that included scans of Biggie's notebooks, letters from fans and scholars, and essays by music historians. The book revealed a different side of Biggie, a thinker, a planner, a man who cared deeply about his art. In the introduction, his mother Voletta Wallace wrote that her son might have lived fast, but he thought ahead more than most people realized. When asked during the book's launch what surprised her the most after years of exploring his archive, she said it was the fact that all of his notebooks were dated. Biggie had left a clear timeline of his thoughts and work. He wanted future generations to understand his story accurately, not just rely on myths. That belief led to the creation of Flow 2.0. This newer version included virtual reality. Users could explore a 3D scan of the original garage where the tapes were found. They could click on reels to hear short samples or hover over the Lexus to see notes Biggie had scribbled about scholarship ideas. The virtual exhibit traveled to libraries and universities across the world, from Atlanta to Ghana. It proved that a legacy didn't have to stay locked in a vault. It could live on through technology, education, and shared memory. As the years passed and the archive neared completion, the estate faced one last big question. It wasn't about what to release. It was about why and when to share something. Everything was now safe. The music had been carefully preserved. The notebooks were organized. The story was intact. But there was no pressure to drop a final song or reveal a big secret. What mattered most was how Biggie's legacy was being carried forward, not through headlines, but through quiet moments of connection and inspiration. Studio interns who once grew up listening to Biggie were now helping to remaster his old songs. Students in Brooklyn were learning about music production in the very neighborhoods Biggie once rapped about. And the community continued to be shaped by the presence of a man who, despite his early death, left behind a powerful voice. Christopher Wallace may have left the garage for the last time in 1997, but what was discovered inside that space ensured his journey would never truly end. His car may have moved on, but the music still flows, the engine still hums, and Brooklyn still rises in the rearview mirror of everything he built. So what's your take on what they found in Biggie's garage? Do you think they should release more music or keep protecting his legacy as they've done so far? Share your thoughts in the comments and make sure to like the video for more hip-hop stories that dive deep. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned. Like and subscribe our channel. Have a good day.